Cavan, welcome back to another episode. The reason why I'm having him on this podcast is you guys know this. We're always sharing information on how you can go from surviving to thriving through nutrition, fitness, and lifestyle. And a lot of times it's hearing other people's perspectives and stories. So that way you can learn a little bit of something, take something away from it, and hopefully help you. And so Cavan has a phenomenal story that he's going to share. And we're just going to see how this conversation goes. But Cavan, for those that don't know who you are, can you introduce yourself?
Oh, for sure. Nice being here. Also, yeah, almost had the last name right. You said it the same
Oh,
way.
I
It's
fucked it
okay.
up
It
still.
makes for a
Damn it.
good conversations, and it's part of my story because no one can say my name right. At least you got my first name right. So it's Cavan Valance. But I
Balance.
mean, but most people get the first name wrong and the last name right. So like you're just backwards is okay. But I appreciate you for that. My name's Cavan. I am the founder and CEO of Hidden Summit, also a lifestyle behavioral habits company where we help people mindset, nutrition, and movement. Right now, I currently live in Naples, Florida. So I moved down here a year ago. I grew up and lived in New York City my entire life. And I love the city. I just said enough of the cold. And after the events of during the pandemic, and I'm not sure if you were in New York during the pandemic at all, but it changed drastically. And I said, enough's enough. Like, let's get out of here. And I live happily down here, a mile and a half from the beach with my girlfriend, Lacey. But yeah, it's been a journey. I don't know. Where do you want to start? I mean, my story starts back when I was graduating high school and I lost my way. And
Yeah.
it might sound cliche, but people put on the freshman 15 and mine was like the freshman 50, almost 100 pounds. And I don't know. I felt like I would never go back and change anything because everything that's happened that we'll talk about today has brought me to where I am now and given me the ability to pay attention to what's important in the moment and continue to move forward. So back when I was 18 years old and I graduated high school and I was going to college, I ended up commuting to a music school. I went to be a music educator. Yeah. So I play some music and no one ever taught me about time management outside of just sitting in a high school between 7:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. Where I had to drive in rush hour traffic in New York City to go to class. And then I had to sit around for hours between class. And I actually had to go to classes that I had no intention of ever using in my life. And you know what? I took the easy way out and just didn't go to class anymore. I hung out with my friends and I got into the wrong circles and started playing in my rock band and started eating a
Wait,
lot of
hold on.
fat.
You were in a rock band?
Oh yeah. I played in a couple of different bands. So
I
we
did
played.
not know that.
Yeah.
That's so dope. Okay, go on. Sorry.
Yeah. So played, and I realized that I was more interested in, playing music my way than going and learning how to teach music. And it was one of those things where you're really good at it in high school. And then in college, when you go, everyone's this little Mozart running around and you're like, why the fuck am I here? Like, I do not belong here. It was
Yeah.
really one of those moments where I didn't like figure out how to make it happen. So long story short, I ended up putting on some weight, drinking a lot, got into doing some drugs, was working at a restaurant. I don't know, my eyes are tearing. We're bringing back a tough memory, Casey. And just would rather play music with my boys at the time. And we would, do dumb shit and like hang out in parking lots and smoke cigarettes and talk about how awesome life is going to be like without taking action on it. And then I would transfer to community college, and it was the same situation. I was like, oh, I can go to community college. It's closer to home. I'll make this happen. And I just ended up not going to class again because I think I had like a 0.5 GPA at that time. And again, just kept putting on the weight. Didn't, play sports anymore. Didn't go to the gym anymore. Didn't have anything to work towards anymore. And while I was in school, my father took my sister to go to visit the school that she was going to potentially go to, while she had already been accepted into a school that she was her first choice. They, went and looked at this school anyway. While taking the tour, my dad happened to bump into the men's lacrosse coach. And my dad at the time talked to everybody. So they struck up a conversation, and the coach was like, "We're looking for players." And my dad was like, "My sons play lacrosse; they're really good." And forgot to mention that I was 300 fucking pounds at that time. So we went in, and at that time, and it's all happened pretty much back to back. The coach did not want me at all. He said, "Your grades are too low and you're too heavy. So if that were to change, we would consider you." But they wanted my brother. My brother happened to be going to study in Melbourne, Australia, that next semester, so he wasn't going to go. But yeah, so he studied abroad over there. That was pretty cool. Something I never did, but I'm going to Europe this April for the second time, so I'm going to enjoy that.
Yes.
So what happened is that around that time, that would have to have been right before, right after. I mean, timelines are blurry, but I was at my lowest on Thanksgiving of 2008. Okay, so I was just angry with myself. I didn't know who I was. I would just hang out with the same people because it was comfortable, and it all, came to a head when I started drinking too much too soon on Thanksgiving, and for some reason got into an argument with my dad. My dad probably said, "Hey, stop drinking. You're drinking too much." And I was probably like, "Fuck you. I'm not drinking too much." One of those like totally responsible conversations. Anyway, I ran outside in my anger from whatever the argument was about, which I could not remember for the life of me. And I ended up punching a hole in my own car window in front of my entire family. That was embarrassing. So after that, with a bloodied arm and everything, decided to walk into the backyard and sit my ass down on the stoop and just started crying. Just started to cry. My aunt came outside. My mom came outside. My dad did not come outside at that point. Probably still pissed. And my aunt said to me, she's like, "Look," more or less, she was like, "You fucked up. We've all fucked up before too. And the thing is, like, we're okay because we decided that we were going to be okay. And this is up to you to move forward and choose the life that you want to live." So why this goes along and parallels the lacrosse story is like, in that moment, yes, I wanted to change. But as you know, with working with your clients, it's really hard to go from surviving to thriving in a moment. It takes dedication and discipline and action and growth, failure and lessons learned. And none of that really happened. Like, yes, I went to the gym a couple more times. Yes, I stopped drinking as many nights a week. Yes, I stopped smoking as many cigarettes, but it didn't cut it cold turkey. So when I got told, "No, you're too dumb and too fat to play on this lacrosse team," that wasn't even a good lacrosse team, just a very average school with a mediocre record. I took that as, okay, just watch. And for the first time, and as long as I could remember, I had a goal. So I went back to that community college that next semester, and I got all A's. And I went to the gym every single day. And I ran to the gym almost every single day. And I remember huffing and puffing on the way to the gym and being super frustrated and embarrassed to be in the gym and not being able to do what I used to do. But I kept going back. I remember like going to GNC and like trying to get every single diet pill because I was like, this is going to help me, and like getting all these different protein shakes. So I was like, this is going to help me. And mind you, I was making like 1,500 calorie protein shakes with peanut butter and oats and all this other shit. Because I knew nothing at the time. I was like, this is going to work. But a couple months later, 4 months later, I was 40 pounds down. And it was because I chose myself. And I remember meeting the assistant coach and one of the players in the team in my local Starbucks because they were going to come and meet with me because I showed them that my grades had gone up. And I told them that my weight had gone down. But all they could do is take my word for it. And I remember sitting there and I had like my Nike hoodie on and workout pants, and I felt really good with all the work I put in. They walked in and I like waved at them. They did just walk by me and I was like, "Hey guys," because they had the gear on from the school. That's how I knew it was them. And they were like, "Wait, you're Cavan? You don't look the same." And I was like, "Well, I told you guys I was going to make this happen. So here I am. What do we do next?" So then long story short again, got into school, played lacrosse the first season, became captain of the team the end of that season, played for a couple more years, graduated college with honors. And then again, I was like, oh, fuck, what do I do? Like, I don't have discipline. I don't have order. Cause I was going to the gym every day. I made friends. We were working out all the time. Like, I felt really good, and went from 40 pounds down to 80 pounds down in the next year or so. So then I found this thing called CrossFit. And I was broke at the time, so I couldn't afford to go to a CrossFit gym because they were super expensive back then too. So I just went to CrossFit.com and did the workout of the day, and I did it at the YMCA. So I was like this psycho running around like on the treadmill and then going and lifting super heavy deadlifts and then doing these kipping pull-ups on like a bar that was like crooked instead of straight, and doing handstand push-ups. And everybody's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm working out. Do you want to work out with me? And they were like, hell no, I don't want to do that. What are you doing? So that was my, I found something that kept me going every single day. And I always say it wasn't like myself who saved my life at that time. It was like the CrossFit methodology and how it kept me sharp and challenged me to do hard things every day and learn things that I couldn't do, to continue to see progress. Because I found that I get bored really easily. I don't know if it's ADD or just, my mind goes a million different directions, but I had an opportunity to try something new, and I did. I found this career in retail, eventually left retail, opened up a spinning studio. Yes, I managed a spinning studio. And then along the way, I found a buddy of mine, because I eventually got a Groupon for a CrossFit gym. It was $50. I was like, I can swing that. And at this time, I lived in Brooklyn, and this was CrossFit East River on the. Yeah. So that was the first gym I went to, and my now one of my best friends, Jared, was coaching there. And for that first month, like, he was someone I would compete with all the time, and he had these muscle up skills, and I was like, I want to learn. I want to be able to do that, because I had never had rings to do them on at that point. And he asked me one day, it was Saturday morning, we were walking to the subway, and he was like, hey dude, do you want to coach with me? I'm opening up a gym. And I was like, where is it? He said, oh, it's on Meserole Street in Brooklyn. I was like, no shit, I live right on the corner of Meserole and Humboldt. He's like, oh really? Come by on this day. And then I never looked back, and I started coaching at Willie B, and we grew those gyms from 1 gym to 6 gyms in 5 years. And that was how I got into fitness and wanted to help people. So that's the beginning of my story. And it keeps going. So, I mean, that's a lot to take in.
Yeah, that is. I mean, just like, I'm just trying to make sure I was on it. So basically, you started with being almost 300 pounds, or at 300 pounds, struggling with drugs, didn't really have much drive in life, also poor grades. And all of a sudden, you just came to the point where enough was enough. And you had that turning point with your family, and you decided to do something about it. So you lost all that weight, got into the lacrosse team, completely turned around your grades, graduated, then started to continue that journey on your own until you found other people. And then that evolved to owning your own spinning gym for a little bit, then meeting the right type of people to open up 5 different gyms in Brooklyn for CrossFit.
Yeah. So I was actually, so I didn't own the spinning gym.
Okay.
I was working for Ralph Lauren before then. Like, I worked,
Okay.
managed the Fifth Avenue flagship store.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I have a little retail and fashion background as well, in managing many retail stores over the years. And I didn't want to be in that environment anymore. I enjoy it. I enjoyed dressing well and styling people and managing a business, but something was pushing me more and more towards health. And this opportunity came up to manage a new flywheel. So I opened up that studio, and we built the business there. And 6 months later, that's when I was coaching at the CrossFit gyms at this time too. But then they asked me to come on full time because we were going to open up our third. And I just became the director of membership and, people essentially, for Willie B. So we had 3 gyms in Brooklyn and 2 in Manhattan. So and then we opened up a bro gym, that, for a little bit, before the pandemic in Brooklyn as well. So it was good until, the pandemic hit, and then things changed and everything shut down. And this is if there's a sequel or a next chapter, it's this, when I had to look inward, and I did everything I could to bring people together online, because I saw people going from training 5-6 days a week to drinking 5-6 days a week and not showing up for any of the online stuff that we were doing. And I was like, something's not right here. And I think it was because while the gym was vast, it had these micro communities. And you know how New York is. Like, if you're in Bushwick and Williamsburg, like, you're not really going to go into the Lower East Side a lot. So we had people in the city that would go to those gyms and they were diehard. And we had people in Brooklyn that would, circulate through the 3 gyms and they were diehard, but like everybody just kind of got scared at that time. And we had a few people showing up every single day. But earlier, late in 2019, early 2020, my brother came to me after getting out of the military. He was a Navy SEAL, and he saw what I saw when it was difficult for them to do what I did, right? It was simple decisions that I made that allowed me to see these changes, but they didn't have the belief in themselves to do so. So they emotionally reacted and like held back their ability to see the change, which never allowed the change to happen. So he came to me and said, hey, do you want to start something where we can coach people on training the body and the mind together so that they can elevate their life? So then he came to me and he said, I want to call this Hidden Summit, because Hidden Summit is like this unknown peak that you can potentially go to, because you actually don't know what your full potential is until you try and go higher and higher and higher. Yep. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. So we LLC'd and made a business, and then did fucking nothing with it until
I was not expecting that. It's like one thing after another, and you're like, then we did nothing with it.
Well, he had a couple clients and I had a couple clients, but I was managing the gyms at the time. And he just got out of the military, so he had more time, and he had a couple of people he was helping, and we got them results, but it was not a business. It was just, we were just coaching people.
Yeah. Well, that's not the story today. I know that you guys are doing well, huge staff and everything. So what was the difference between then and now?
So when the pandemic happened, and the world shut down, Derek was actually going into the police academy. So he had less time to do things, and I had more time to do things, and I have more of a business creative brain. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, I'm going to make this Facebook group and just invite people to work with me. And I held, workouts every single day. I got on calls every Monday and Tuesday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. with different people to talk about mindset, nutrition, and movement. Started getting people results. And then I did this all for free. So with that in mind, then I was feeling really stretched out. So I said, we're going to do mindset huddles on Monday and nutrition talks on Tuesday. And we're going to work out Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And we're going to run these 6-week challenges and these 21-day challenges in between them. And it was working for a while, until I got furloughed from the gyms. The reason why I could do this is because I still had responsibility at the gyms and I was receiving a paycheck. But from March to September, I was getting paid. And then September came and they're like, hey, we can't pay you anymore. So that's when I said, oh, fuck, what do I do? And they're like, okay, well, if you wait September and October, you can come back in November. And that's when I don't know if it was a sign from God or just me listening to my gut for once. But I packed up a suitcase and I went out to St. Louis because I'm a first form elite athlete and I had a place to stay out there, and I wanted to be surrounded by type A people and pick their brains and figure this out. And in 2 weeks I was able to supplement my entire income and sign up clients to be able to sustain this thought, this mission, this project to help people elevate their lives, body, and mind. So I called my boss 2 weeks later and I was like, hey dude, I'm not coming back. He was like, all right, I appreciate that. I've started businesses before. I wish you well. And that was it. And then from there, I just kept rolling with it, kept bringing on clients. I built a client roster of 50, 60 people. And then one of my clients happened to become a coach, and then I had another client to become a coach, and then I had another client become a coach, because they were all capable, because I was helping a lot of coaches at the time. I was coaching a lot of coaches to better fix their mental state, because they had the nutritional education and maybe they needed some tweaking on their fitness, but they all wanted to be a part of something bigger. So then we were able to actually spread the word more and reach more people. And then, today I have a staff of 15 coaches and 5 admins. So we have 22 people on the team with my brother and I, where we get to show up every single day and work with people to help transform their life, body, and mind. It's not about, doing it perfectly. It's actually about imperfect action practiced repeatedly over time to yield positive results. So we've done that through the power of community. We've done that through the power of community calls and one-on-one training, having, fun challenges happen along the way, being involved with what it is that we are preaching. We're leading by example. So it's been a ride. We had tremendous growth in 21 and 22. And I don't know, this year has been tough. I think the world is changing a lot. Like we're getting further and further away from the online coaching of the, 2020 when that's the only thing we could do. So we're in a place where we want to get out and get creative and get into different rooms to teach what we do and teach it our way and bring people on. We've even discussed like potentially opening up a physical location or traveling and doing seminars or just hosting. We hosted a retreat that had 80 people here down in August, and we want to do that again, but we want to be where the people are and not just be ball and chain to a single location. So we're trying to get creative now, right? Like this is how business goes. It's never easy. So as you probably understand, a lot of tough conversations. There's been loss along the way. I've lost friends, I've lost colleagues. And I think the mission is pure and we're helping people. It's funny, right? Once people get into our four walls, they have trouble leaving. I always tell them when they sign up, it's like, I don't want to work with you forever, because if I do, then I suck at my job. But they're like, I love what we're doing here. And I really appreciate the trust that we've built. And, they shift from different levels of accountability to still be involved with the community. And it's been a fun journey. It's something that I really appreciate. And, I don't know if you feel this way, but like personally along the way, like I've had to fight battles on how I keep myself on track, because when you start a business, it's, like, oh, everything can go the way I need it to go. And I can work out the way I want to work out still. And then as you grow, there's more time demands on what needs to get done. And you got to kind of figure that out along the way as well. So it's, I'm always learning. Like I still think we're in our infantry stage, or we're young, 3 years old, going up 4 years old. Math is hard.
Right, they hire us for nutrition fitness, not for math.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, it's a small world, because you were talking about being in Brooklyn, and I spent a lot of my journey in Brooklyn too. I don't know if you know some of the gyms I was in. So I started in Virtuosity, Virtuosity in Williamsburg.
I know.
And then, so I started there. So, the upstairs loft area? I lived in there for about 5 years, half the year. Because I was a full-time weightlifter. And so the weightlifting coach in Virtuosity was Blanco. You know him?
Yeah. I've met him. I don't know if he knows me. I've met him in like passing conversation, but yeah. Yeah.
So he had a barbell gym in there. He's moved out. He's completely moved out. He's in Bushwick now. He's got a gym there that's fully just weightlifters. He's grown a lot since I was his first national and international athlete. And now he's got like a whole group of youth, senior and masters athletes that are going nationals and international meets all the time. It's really cool to see how much he's grown. But I started there, and then there's Murder Crows.
I've heard of that. It's in South Brooklyn, right?
I think so, if I remember right. Yeah, so that was another one. My friend Brian helps manage CrossFit NYC.
Okay, yeah, I know CrossFit NYC. We did a little bit with them when they were looking to expand for a short period of time. But I mean, I know Todd. Do you know Todd who coached there for a while?
I don't know much beyond Brian. We went over to his gym once, but most of the time he came over to us. So Brian's the one where he was just this jacked guy that had like a turtle shell, 6-pack abs with really long curly hair and glasses with really deep voice.
I've seen him lift on their Instagram or his Instagram or whatever it was back. So I've never met him, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Every single time we went to national meets, he's one of my best friends. Every single time he went on national meets, you could hear the announcers being like, yep, here's Brian with his 6-pack abs popping out. I coached him for a while too. So he's a really good dude. So yeah, that whole community, it's a small world how we could all be in the same community, but never see each other. Well, actually, New York is not actually really that small at all.
Yeah. Well, it's geographically. I mean, you guys were like 4 blocks away from where we were on Grand Street, and then another 6 blocks in our Greenpoint location. But it's funny, right? It's like I was so involved with the gyms. it was hard for me to go into any of the other gyms. And I
Yeah.
look back and I'm like, man, maybe we could have done that a different way. And like, but it was just like, wake up, teach, train, go back, run admin, ops, go back, teach, go back, sleep, and then do it again for years. So like, I'm not surprised that you were so close and we didn't cross paths. Right.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Being in the fitness industry, it's a grind. And I want to go back to what you were talking about before, where it's like, it's always a lesson of learning how to balance ourselves. Everybody thinks like when we become a nutrition fitness coach, all of a sudden we have all the time in the world to take care of ourselves. I know for me personally, that is probably one of the biggest struggles I've been facing the past couple of years is learning how to manage business. And you have more people on staff, but that was something that I was struggling with is like, I was no longer in charge of just my clients and myself. Now I had to manage people. I was paying people's paychecks, their mortgages, like I had a lot of responsibility. And so you just kind of dive into what you love and there's very little time left for you. Do you mind me asking, like, what did you do anything specific or like, what were there some specific things that you overcame recently? Because I know a lot of people they might not be in the same industry as us, but I know a lot of other people are like, hey, I've got these big goals. I know I need to focus on myself, but there's this huge disconnect of balancing achieving my goals and also taking care of myself. Is there anything specific that worked for you?
Yeah. So I love this question. I think it's something that I've learned along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to, begin by saying that I've fucked up with this more times than I'd like to admit. And
Same.
it's honestly, I feel it was part of what cost me my old relationship, which I believe was going to happen anyway. But I just, burned it down by not being me and just focusing on the business. There was less communication, and I mean, we were together for 10 years and, she left me because, we didn't see eye to eye. We have different vision, different values. And the lifestyle was different too at that time. So, I mean, with that in mind, like we didn't communicate about it. So what I find is best when balancing like what we do as an entrepreneur and in life for ourselves is to know who it is you are and what life you want to be, what life you want to live. And what I mean by that is the life that you want to live something that you're willing to act in accordance with? So if I want to live a life where I can wake up at 12 o'clock every day and I have self-sustaining businesses and the passive income, what does that take to happen? Right. And that's not necessarily what I want. But if I'm not willing to put in the work to get there, then do I really want it, or does it just sound nice? So what I've learned along the way is that when I look at myself, I know that I'm not someone who does well when I burn the candle from both ends. And I've been realizing that a lot as of recently. Between 2020 and 2022, 2020, end of 2021, beginning of 2022, I would wake up at 4 a.m. and go to bed at 11 o'clock when I was just done working, and I lived that life, and I would find my time to train in there, and my training suffered, and I put on some weight. I didn't love the way I looked, but the business was growing. Since then, I've been able, and I thank Lacey for this a lot. I mean, I love her to death. Like, she's helped me so much look inward to find out who it is that I want to be.
And Lacey is your new girlfriend, correct?
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. So we've, we sit down and she just posted this, actually. It's funny. She's like, power couples don't, or like successful couples don't just show what they do on vacations and like all of the fun that they're having. They're there in silence for the other person and listen when needed and make that time and space to be close to somebody when they're going through it. Because we're both entrepreneurs. And while we ride these highs, like we have lows, and they hit hard. Mm-hmm. And, what I found is that like I do better like when I'm all in, and when that work production slows, I need to be all out. I literally need to fucking do nothing. Mm-hmm. So I've done more days off this year. I've done more getaways this year. I've done just like evenings where I don't look at my phone and I sit in the ice for a little bit and like come on the couch, and then her and I will sit and we'll talk, or we'll throw on Netflix and we'll watch more TV. And that might sound counterintuitive to like, oh my God, everybody's got to work so hard these days to make all these things happen. But again, I care more about my mental well-being than, squeaking out a couple extra emails or lines in a book that I'm putting together, or, a framework that I'm running. Because at the end of the day, I'm not sending anybody to the moon, and I'm not curing cancer. I'm helping people create behavioral habits to enhance their well-being so that they can mentally and physically be proud of what they've become. And I think that for me, that works. Well, honestly, have you ever heard of human design? We spoke about this
No.
once, I think, on
Oh, wait, no. You sent me
Yeah.
all those links last time when we chatted.
So
Yeah. Can you explain really fast what that is for people that are
so
listening?
I'm gonna butcher this one because like, just go look it up. But it's similar to like your astrological sign, and like, when you're born, where you're born, what time you're born, and there's different, by design, categories that you can fall in. And I happen to be in what's called the projector category. And for me, it's about learning what that means for me to be productive and my best self in certain moments. And I find that I'm best, like, when I listen and I can give you the power to do what it is that you need to do, instead of like Lacey, who's a manifesting generator, who's like, I'm going to take 10 different things and run with them at the same time and have them all complete because I can multitask and I can focus on all these different things to make sure that they're all done. Like, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And we actually live in a world, Casey, where it's like a Manny-Jenny world, where it's like everything, like we have to hustle, grind, make all these things happen. But like, I don't work well that way. I get stressed, I burned out, I'm more emotional at those points in time when I feel like I'm a very calm, logical person. But what I do with it is, like, I don't take anything like verbatim. I read it and I analyze it, and then I pay attention to how I am in certain moments to make better decisions, understanding who I am more so, how I can act, how I can think, how I can communicate with the people that I care about, so I can help provide them with the best value so we can all move forward together. Now, the other thing I talk about a lot is the Enneagram, and I'm an Enneagram 8. And part of like my projector profile means that, like, the more vulnerable you are, the more you're going to be able to communicate better. But being as an Enneagram 8 doesn't like to be vulnerable, because I don't like to, it's not being seen as not knowing what I'm doing, but I don't like to like share what's happening on the inside. I'd rather just like deal with it until I can figure it out.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of lessons learned, and I know this is a long-winded answer. However, in short, it comes down to two things. It's understand the life that you want and understand the life that you want and how you need to act to make that happen. And if you're not willing to act that way to make it happen, then you might want to adjust what it is that you might want to adjust the life that you want. And that doesn't mean that you're doing anything less, because you can be completely happy if you are honest and true with yourself. The other thing is, understand that it's okay to breathe. It's okay to slow down. It's okay to take mental breaks. It's okay to shut things down for a little while so you can come back recharged. And I talk about this in my course, Progress Over Time, where we talk about knowing your capacity, right? If I was going to drive from here to Kansas City, I could probably get there. But if I don't charge my Tesla at some point, I'm going to be pushing the car. Now, why do we do that with our car and stop to charge or get gas along the way and take the easiest route via the GPS? But when it comes to ourselves, as in our weight loss and fitness journey, our entrepreneurial journey, why do we just like burn the candle from both ends and say, let's burn it down and see what happens? You're not going to get there as efficiently. You'll get there eventually, but you're going to kick your own ass along the way. So that's how I look at how I'm able to balance this growth and these changes. And, I'm always learning new things along the way too. I mean, you're probably like, tell me, when you started this and you were just coaching people, and now you have a business and you're controlling, how people pay for their life and how they survive. It's this like unknown pressure you didn't know happened. And one, like, maybe you've been like me and you've woken up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh my God, how the fuck are we going to do this month? But
yes,
it's
100%. It's a lot of pressure. Like I got in this business. I didn't want to be a business owner. I never wanted to be a business owner. It's just like, when I started nutrition, I didn't know of a lot of coaches that coach the way that I believe people deserve. Nowadays, there's a lot more people like us that do coach that way. I still don't think that there's enough, but I wanted to be a part of a team of people that want to do it the right way, that actually wanted to give a shit about people and their livelihoods. Because I didn't think it was just macro bullshit. It's like, hey, hit your macros. Good job. Here's some meal prep recipe guide. And that's not what's going to get like lifelong change. Right. And so over a course of period of time, I thought it was just going to be like, hey, I get to coach people and people come on. But then as it grew very, very fast, did I realize that that wasn't it. And yeah, I still have days today where I'm up late. Even last night, I had a night where I wasn't sleeping. I was trying to figure out, how am I going to do this? It's hard. And it's always like, I agree with you 100%. It's, even if you start asking those questions of like, how do you want to do it? How do you want to live your life? Majority of us don't even ask ourselves that question. So you don't know what you don't know. So then it takes some trial and error of like, I think this is what I want. And you try it and you're like, oh, no. That's not what I wanted. Let me try this. And so it's always this journey of learning more, right? Like, I like how you brought up, I appreciate how you brought up and got vulnerable about your previous relationship. I recently just went through that too, where I really do believe the way that I was doing things really did cost my marriage. I was married for about 6 years and we were together for about 10 years altogether. And when we first started the marriage, we were very much aligned with who we were. But then as I evolved and I grew, I fell in love with first weightlifting. And I did that. And I was gone half the year. I spent majority of time in the gym. Unfortunately, I was one of those weightlifters that was cut happy. Always making weight, always tracking my food, which later on developed hormonal issues. And dude, Cavan, you should have painted a freaking middle finger on my forehead. I was miserable to be around. Like, I remember us having conversations of like, when I left, he was like, I was pretty much excited when you left because I was done fighting with you. Like, I was done doing this. He just didn't define his life as that. And then I got into the business side of things and just dove into that because I was like, okay, we don't have a lot of money and this is my dream, but I need to make sure that I'm also providing a lot of money or like providing money so that way we can support our life and everything like that. So I spent hours and hours and hours of building this business, just diving into it. And I think partly it was because I was trying to avoid a relationship. I was trying to avoid the tips. I was trying to avoid the space that was growing between us. So I just dove into the work. And it's actually this time last year. No, it was like last month or like in November last year, where it just got to the point where I evolved in one way, he evolved in another way. And I knew that we loved each other, but we wanted different things. And I was going down a path that he wasn't happy about because he wanted the white picket fence. He wanted the family. He wanted the kids. I wanted this business. I wanted to help people. I wanted to grow. I wanted to travel. And so we decided to split and we got divorced. And that right there was a huge hit in the face. Like, of what am I doing? Is this going to be sustainable? And I had to like completely wipe everything. And we like basically restarted all this year, and we're still like evolving and growing and get to knowing each other because I tried things and it didn't work. And I tried things and it didn't work. Luckily, I feel like we are getting a little bit of a better groove. We're really learning who we are and what we want to do. And also, I'm in a new relationship as well with Calvin. And I don't know if you did this, like before in your previous relationship, you like probably spent your time in a certain way, right? And it was probably not really constructive towards a healthy relationship like you're talking about before. But now you're in a relationship that you really enjoy. You align with that person. Did you find times where you're like, oh, what I was doing before, I can't do this now? Like, if I want this healthy relationship.
Absolutely. And I thank you for sharing all that, right? I think it's super important to be able to speak about those things and understand you're not any less of a person. It's a lesson learned and you're leaning into what you're doing and you love it. So if you can lean into that and find this harmony between your work and your personal life, it should elevate you to a higher place in both.
100%.
One of the things that Lacey and I did very early on was actually sit down and have a meeting, like, because it happened so fast. We had a meeting and we were like, hey, what is this going to be? What is the expectation? And what are, like, we call it our pillars of love. Like, what is our mission statement and core values for who we are and what we're doing?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So I ask you, like, how often do you meet with your integrator, your head of ops?
Every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
How often do you have a meeting with Calvin?
Calvin every day. Okay. Before, No.
Okay, good. So like the idea is like it might sound crazy to look at our relationship as a business, but if we aren't sitting down every month to have a dedicated time to plan what it is we're doing and what it is we want to do, it's never going to happen, which could lead to miscommunication, which could, lead to no communication, which could lead to what had happened with both of us before, because she was in a 10-year relationship that ended as well. So we came into this like, hey, we're in our 30s. We've been through this before. We don't want that anymore. Like, what are we doing? And we continue to build on that every single day, right? So as to your point, and maybe just to reiterate some, because I believe people could use this to benefit themselves in their life. In our 20s, it's really hard to make long-term decisions. And I actually had a friend of mine say his grandmother told him, and she was like, don't make any big decisions in your 20s. Just wait until your 30s. Everything will be okay. And I laughed, but
I like that.
I look back and I'm like, oh, this actually makes a lot of sense. Like, you can go and fuck up in your 20s and like, you can still be okay.
Yeah.
We base everything early on in relationships, especially on lifestyle, but lifestyle can change, as you've just defined and I just defined, right? When I met, and I was, with my ex, I was working in retail. I had set hours. I had, days off. I had a schedule to follow. We would spend a lot of time together. We would go out more. We would drink more. And then as I started to get more and more into fitness and I wanted to compete, and I left that and things changed. And then I built my own business. I leaned more and more into that. But like, she was still riding the corporate ladder and doing what she had to do. And, we grew apart from a lifestyle perspective.
Yeah.
She wasn't training anymore. I was training more. It's like, it didn't work out. The two things that we didn't focus on are our vision, where it is we want it to go, and our values. What type of life do we want to live? So like our core values at Hidden Summit are vision, integrity, and perseverance. So if you can see where it is that you want to go, you can ask yourself, am I willing to do what needs to get done to get there? And then can I fight through it when times get hard and do the uncomfortable, whether that be as simple as a communication, saving money, putting yourself in a position to do the work that you don't want to do, doing things when nobody's watching, when you told yourself you were going to do them, odds are you're probably going to make progress. Now you add another person to that mix, then you have two sets of vision, value, and perseverance. It takes a little bit more communication for that to happen over time.
100%.
So like, that's what I base everything off of. And Lacey and I are very much so on the same page. And, we don't want to have kids. We want to travel the world. We want to be able to create other businesses. We have a couple ideas in the works. We're leaning into one of them right now. That should be pretty exciting through 2024, 2025. Because, there's more things that we want to do. And it isn't this normal traditional life that our parents had lived. Or our exes wanted to live, no white picket fence, no kids, maybe a dog one day when we have more space. That's a whole nother story. I love dogs. Lost them in the relationship, which is the most heartbreaking part of it. Yeah. But, we're just in a point in our lives right now where it's this focus on how to make what we're doing so good while making what we are so much better than it ever has been every single day. And I think that's really important too. And all of that has helped me. Yeah, gotta love this. It's my first podcast. All of that has helped me lean into the business and lean into myself.
Yeah.
Because if I can't be my best self, then my leadership team, my coaches, our clients, they don't get the best version of me, and everybody suffers. And that's 10 fingers pointed back at me, my fault. Yeah. So that's how I try and handle it every day. Easier said than done, but we take action on it, make it happen.
I don't know if you ever did you ever notice this, is that like, okay, before we both dove into our businesses, just head first, dedicating all of our time. But now we're in this space on the other side of learning from everything. We're in a better relationship and everything like that. Have you ever noticed that the less time you spend in the business and more on you, the better that the business does?
At points, I would say, not always. What's really hard for me to do still is let go of control. So I mean, there are certain things I know other people I've hired do better than me. And yes, those areas get better. But it's this balance of being present to give my 2 cents to help the business grow. Instead of like, it's not a dictatorship. It's not my way or the highway, but hey, this is the intention and this is the project that we have to work on. So like, why don't you come to me with your ideas, and like, I'll give you the go ahead. And if there's something that, doesn't align with where we're going, then we can talk about it. However, when I do take time for myself, I do come back more energized. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I necessarily do it the best right now, but I do think that, there are moments that I completely need to shut off. So whether that's taking a day off here, or we went to Colorado Springs for 5 days just to go hiking, be out in nature and be, away from it all. And I was like, I'm not working. You guys got this. We're okay. I'll come back and we'll crush it. And we did. It's just that, I don't know. It's just something it's hard for me to like wrap my head around, where if I don't know, it's just this hard dichotomy of like, how much is too much time off and how much is too much like holding on too tight. And I think it just happens to be per, moment. And I always look inward and ask myself, well, what's important now? Like, can I let them roll with this? And then if it goes great, like find out how they did it so we can rinse and repeat it. And if things could be better, what does that productive conversation look like? So I give more freedoms these days. But my goal is always to assess the situation, find both like metric driven data and anecdotal data so we can figure out like the emotional side and the black and white side so we can continue to grow. And that, I would kill myself if I had to be in every single situation and call that every single person on my team had. Like there's this level of trust that just needs to be there. Yeah. So I'm learning how to do that more and more. If you have any tips, you can let me know too. So,
the way that it worked in my brain, because I'm very similar in the sense of if I'm not working, I feel like I'm being lazy as fuck. It's just the way that I was raised. Like my dad's an army brat. My mom is probably one of the hardest working people I've ever met. Like she overcame more than what most people ever should in their life. And she's like my hero. So I was instilled in a very young age is like, I don't give a shit how you feel. You get the job done and you do it well because you have integrity. And so I'm very much, I also have the nickname The Bull because I will literally run through walls and will not pay attention to how I feel until all of a sudden I hit a major burnout and I'm in bed for like 2 days and I'm being like, why do I feel this way? It's like, because you haven't taken a break in a really long time. So I know I'm the same way. Is like, I can't keep pushing like I used to. It's one of the reasons why I have a lot of hormonal issues because I would literally train 6 to 8 hours a day on 1,500 calories and travel pretty much every single month and live in a gym and run my online business while coaching classes, while training, never stopping, never sleeping. And I'm like, I can't keep doing this. I've got to figure that out. But like you keep pushing, you don't really have that self-awareness of where your limit is because you don't notice it. You just hit mute a lot. So with that context, the thing that's been working well in my brain is kind of shifting my focus or my perspective in what I used to do as an athlete needs to apply with my brain. Now I'm a mental athlete, right? And just as an athlete, there's an optimal dosage of work to rest ratio. Now everybody's different and it's athlete's responsibility to figure out what that optimal work to rest ratio is. And there's also seasons. There's seasons of recovery. There's seasons to pre, in season, and post and recovery. And all those seasons need to happen. And so it's the same thing with the mental side of things. There's like a pre, there's in season, there's a post season, there's a recovery. And I have to make sure that I'm hitting all those seasons. And even in an athlete's lifespan, it's not going to be perfect. Some of it is based off of data, but some of it is subjective because we're more than robots. We are human beings. The psychological side has just as much of an impact on us as the physiological side of things. So it's a constant journey of learning that over a period of time. But just by shifting that there's a work to rest ratio. I would not be a good athlete without sleeping. I would not be a good athlete without resting. I would not be a good athlete without having an off season. It's the same thing with performing mentally. I think that shift right there of like rest is not laziness. Rest is what's required for me to perform well. That's what shifted. I've also heard that rest is work. I think like sometimes it's just like, how are you speaking to yourself that can like be the switch to help you. And then I think also one of the big things that helped me is one of my mentors told me this. He's like, you are the foundation to everything that you want to achieve. You are like, if you are working at 10%, everything that you're trying to pour into will receive 10% of you. Do you think you're ever going to achieve what you want? No. So the first thing that needs to come in mind is you. What do you specifically need to thrive, right? Is that your relationship? Is that your time? Is that your workouts? Like, what is going to fill up your cup so that way you can fill up the other cups? So I was talking about this with Calvin, I think it was like a month ago, and he brought something up because he was reflecting on how he wasn't doing his side of things and what was important to him. He's like, we always say that this relationship is important. We always say that our health is important. We always say that our mind is important. We always say that us living our life is important. But he's like, I heard this on a podcast. He was like, the person, and I'm probably going to paraphrase this. I don't think I'm saying this completely on point, but it's like, show me your wallet and show me your calendar. I'm going to show you what kind of a person you are. You're going to prioritize. You're going to put that in your calendar. If it's really, truly important to you, you're going to make that time. Right. So I'm like, oh, fuck. Do I actually put time in my calendar to be with my significant other? Do I actually put time in my calendar to eat, to work out, and all these different things? I think those little pieces connecting of like rest and spending time on me is not bad. Like, that's an old belief that got me here in the first place. It's time to change. I've got to make that mental shift. And it's not lazy either, contrary to popular belief. It's actually, like, again, the optimal work to rest ratio. What is going to fill up your cup? And that's different for everybody. I think that takes a trial and error. What fills up my cup is probably different than you, Cavan. So
Yeah,
but that's what helped me.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, I have everything on my calendar. I love that you said that. But, you saying that and me listening, I think it's, we can go and audit that. We can ask if like this has just become repeated and not, if it's not productive, then what's the point, right? Is it busy time, or are we giving it our all, right? I mean, I have reading on my calendar. I have like doing stretching and ice on my calendar. I have my workout times. Lacey and I share a calendar, so we know when we have time to do things for ourselves. We have our monthly meeting on there, right? So like, what is it like? What's the intention, right? So I had a conversation with a client. I do a little add-on now where people can work with me one-on-one. So we get on one call a month, and we do more of a cohort where they can get on a weekly call and they discuss, what they're doing to elevate their lives, not to interfere with the nutrition and fitness coaching that they're getting from their primary coach. But I have a lot of entrepreneurs on there. So like very, very green businesses, helping them take those first steps, as well as others who are working on financial situations and like actually just need more like time to talk to somebody who's been through more shit than their coach. So like, I'm happy to help them. And one of the clients, she was speaking to us about input and output based goals, right? So like, how often do we say, this is what I want? Like, I want to lose 20 pounds. Great. So that's a great output based goal, but what do we need to put into that to make it happen? So that's something I've been thinking on more, right? So like all of these frameworks that we run and these like challenges that we run and these calls that we run, what is the intention behind getting them to get the most out of it? And what do we need to do in order to make that happen? So I look at my calendar, I'm like, okay, we can edit this, we can audit this, we can make sure that there's less on the calendar, but more, on the calendar that we can actually focus on to move the needle forward. That's something that I'm looking at doing, getting into the new year. Because I have a fire lit under me again. You're talking about rest, that rest ratio for an athlete. And we deal a lot with stress. We talk to a lot of clients who have severe stress issues, whether it be gut stress or joint and muscle stress, energy, the extra weight that they hold, emotional, mental stress. And we want to empty that stress bucket, right? So like I've created this, I call it the FBT, or functional blueprint type. So what happens is, like, as we go through and assess all this data on a 0 to 4 scale, like we look at what is most severe and what is least severe. And oftentimes we were going to put people through what we call this flush protocol, which is minimal movement, lots of breath work, stretching, mobility, yoga, eating a basically Mediterranean style diet and a calorie surplus. And, the whole point of this is to lower inflammation in the body so that their body can actually see metabolic change and then thereafter physical change in the next season of their life, right? Whatever that goes to. So I was talking about this and I understand it scientifically. And then finally, like it came time where Lacey and I were like, okay, we're going to do this together. And it was so hard because I was like, I can't work out. What are you talking about? How is this going to help me? So we did minimal. We did 3 moderate zone 2-ish training days a week. Zone 2, like cardio, if we did any, but it was mostly like, 5 RPE lifting, like very moderate weightlifting. Mm-hmm. We'd walk every single day. We did it for 13 days. The 14th day, we did a 20-mile ruck because we told somebody we would do it. So like that hurt after not really doing much before then. However, I lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks from stress. It was literally just stress. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't have too much fat to lose. And I was eating more calories than I had ever had before. I was training less than I ever had before. But like and I didn't have any caffeine for the 2 weeks. Like, I don't know if you do caffeine, but that was probably the most challenging part.
I am a coffee connoisseur.
There we go. Yeah, it's 4 o'clock or whatever time it is, 2 o'clock. I want to go have another cup of coffee. But my point is that was only 14 days of my life. Mm-hmm. And since then, I've been able to build upon what it is that affected me. And I've been able to see what is causing me more stress so I can pinpoint when I need to rest and when I need to lean into whatever it is, work, training, Lacey, etc. And it's not been a perfect ride because of the trial and error. But in doing so, I've become more so okay with getting in and out of the gym in an hour, right? Mm-hmm. I was like you. I don't need to train for 3-4 hours a day anymore. Like, I'm not competing anytime soon. But as you know, as an athlete, it's hard to get rid of that and shift into other areas. Like I'm never going to do enough. So what's helped me is actually to be able to see what works and what doesn't work and be present in the moment, because I now have my output-based goal, what I want. I'm seeing the input-based goals that can, take place each and every single day. And I think the next step, like you just mentioned, which you helped me realize in this moment, was if I can put this on my calendar and actually have more productive but less volume of things on my calendar, what is that going to do for me on the inside to be less stressed so I can be more productive when it comes to work and training and life? So that's
sometimes
cool.
Less is more, right?
Yeah,
like
often simple is effective.
Yeah. I always talk to people, like our clients, about this. Is like, sometimes, like you're talking about stress, we work with that a lot. And a lot of times it's because they have a very similar mindset, is like more is better, right? I need to be in a larger calorie deficit. I need to work harder. I need to do more intense training. I need to be in the gym more. That's what's going to get the workout. But then you put themselves in a very stressed state where now you're seeing the resistance. Then you have to put them through the flesh that you were talking about. And I'm always like, when we're having this conversation, they're always like, wait, I get to do less? And I'm like, yeah, you get to do less. Like, working hard is not a really great way to track whether or not this is going to be effective. I'm actually more impressed with somebody who works smarter, not harder. What's the least amount of change that I need to create in order to create the outcome that I'm looking for? Because more is not better. It's like the Goldilocks approach. Not too little, not too much. What's the just right for you? Because too little, something's not good for you. Too much is not good for you. We've got to find the right middle, right? So it's like breaking that thought process that we've both been instilled from a very young age. I know a lot of other people struggle with this too, especially if you're like a goal-oriented person, where we have to break past that belief that more is always better, that we will somehow have more value in our life, or we'll get better results by just pushing harder and doing more and more and more.
Yeah, I like to say better is better.
Yeah.
Right. It's not more is not better. Better is better. So like that could be less. That could be more specific. That could be more. Right. But it's just it's like you said it yourself. Like, do I have the integrity to do what I said I was going to do at a state of excellence? Right. Yeah. I think excellent is better than perfect, because if we can practice what excellent means and hold that standard, then we'll be able to. It doesn't necessarily mean we have to do more and stress ourselves out, but we can be present and be calm and have a clear thought process and be actually move better or think better or communicate better in each moment. Like I said earlier, like I had a reactionary text message that I sent out to my team, and it ended up being a very difficult conversation. First of all, I should have never texted it. We should have just spoken about it. But, alas, I was.
We live and we learn.
Yeah, we're not perfect. But then we spoke afterwards, and, we're on the same page. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, I understand what you're saying. You get what I'm saying. Like, we just need to be excellent here. Right. Mm-hmm. This is a matter of like what we're doing. What we do works. Like we wouldn't be able to be here if it didn't happen, if it didn't work. Right. But the standard of excellence needs to be raised. And that starts with me and you, and then everybody else, and then the clients. So I think it's a good conversation to have, but you're right. Like less is more oftentimes. Better is better always, and simple and effective is a way. I don't know if you got your clients deal with this or you deal with it, but I like to overcomplicate things a lot.
Oh yeah, 100%. Oh my gosh, I am so guilty of that. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah. So with that in mind, simple is most effective.
Yep.
Right. Anything from a post that I put up, simple and effective. A challenge that we run is simple and effective. And I've learned because I've tried to do too much, and it makes sense to me. But when you try and communicate that to 500 people, like it's not going to translate. So yeah, I think that's really cool.
There's a popular analogy that I use. So I'm a daughter of a construction worker, also drop F-bombs like they're Skittles. Well, that's another story. And my dad over the years, him and his partner get paid the big bucks, right? And they don't get paid the big bucks because they spend more effort and time, because that just shows inefficiency, right? He gets paid the big bucks because he's in and out very fast. He makes it very simple on his employers, and his work is phenomenal. You can't find anybody in the area that they do. Like they've got a certain skill set that most groups can't do. That's why they get paid the big bucks. They're in and out, they keep it simple, and they do it effective. So finding value in a crew that spends all this time and works super hard, I'm going to pay them less. That's not valuable to me. I'd rather have somebody that's in and out really fast and makes my life easier. So it's the same thing here, is you finding more value in how hard you're working and how much time you're putting into it. I'm like, dude, you're working harder than you need to be doing. That isn't good. Right. Again, I'm most impressed when people, like, majority of our clients don't even macro count. So I'm like, you don't need to macro count. Is it optimal? Yeah. Can you get really great results with macros? Yeah. Can it be something that you pull out of your pocket at the last minute to really push things? Yeah. Like I've coached high level athletes a majority of my career. It's just recent that we just transitioned to lifestyle, and majority of them didn't macro count until about 4 weeks out. I was like, you don't need to do more than what you need to be doing. The psychological stresses of playing macro Tetris and having to be perfect leading in is just as harmful to your progress as the physiological stressors. Like, keep it as simple as possible. That's why people came to me, because I simplified the fuck out of things. We didn't need to have to do things we didn't need to do, right? So it's the same thing here with people and their effort. But Cavan, we're over the hour. And I know that you're a busy man, and I appreciate you coming on. And also, I want to say thank you for being really vulnerable and opening up and talking about things that most people don't want to talk about. I feel like we live in this highlight world where nobody really actually talks about shit. All they show is like the top, all of the successes, but nobody really sees like what we went through to go through that. Nobody really talks about that vulnerable conversations and journeys that we had. So thank you so much for coming on and just being super vulnerable with us.
Absolutely. No, thank you for having me. I'm happy to talk about these topics, on my story, on business, anytime. You're a really easy person to talk to. So I appreciate you inviting me on and having this conversation. And again, like, I hope we could do this again sometime. Right.
Hell yeah.
So we can keep it going. Because I think at the end of the day, if, we have some time to talk about these practical, applicable situations, it goes beyond the scope of nutrition coaching and fitness. And it's just about, well, what is it that you're trying to handle in life? And how can we keep that simple? How can we be logical in that situation? How can we see look 5 steps ahead to see what this is going to do for me? And if this is what you really want to do, like, let's form a plan to make it happen. Yeah. And like, these are the best conversations. Like, I get 100%. So much more excited about these than, having somebody make sure they hit their protein goal, which is,
But yeah, most of the time people get on a coaching call, I'm like, you thought we were going to be talking like macros or protein. No, we're going to actually talk about what you really need to be talking about. But you bet your ass you're going to be on this one. I really enjoyed talking to you. But before I let you go, can you please share where people can find you and contact you if they do want to reach you?
Oh, of course. The easiest way to get in touch with me is on Instagram. It's at CAVANTV_. That's Cavan TV _ because those are my initials. Not because of, or you could just email me at contact@hiddensummitgroup.com, and I'd love to strike up a conversation. So appreciate you having me, Casey. This has been great.
Of course. And by the way, guys, if you're listening or watching on YouTube, in the show notes, I'll go ahead and link his Instagram profile. And that way you can get in contact with him and see some of the dope shit that he's doing over there. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Again, I appreciate your time and your attention. Thank you for coming back for another episode. Until next week.